It's about that time to grab your favorite snack and sit back and relax, because you are now listening to the Movie Time podcast with your hosts, Low-Key Geek Renee Zalata and Blake the Wolf. Take it away, boys.
Oh, hey, what's up, everybody? Guess who's back in town? We got Blake the Wolf after his trek across the world, you know, kind of soul searching, doing the Kane from Kung Fu thing. We finally have Blake back for his brand new week, a brand new episode of Movie Time. Of course, I'm ecstatic that he's back. I get to finally talk to someone instead of talking by myself. But Blake, welcome back. How have you been? How have been your travels? What's up, man?
Is this the first conversation you've had since I left? Have you just been locked in that room?
This is the first conversation. Yeah, the first conversation I've had with a human in a very long time.
Well, I'm excited because it's not even really a conversation. We're the Movie Time guys. So what we do is we review movie times, and it's like Movie Phone, but a YouTube channel, right?
That's
Welcome, where we're just going to read off every movie time in every city in America, and then we're trying to go worldwide. And that's why I've been traveling, is learning what movie times are out there. In
all the
places.
Theaters, the locations, all that.
I went West Coast, then I went Cuba. Now I'm back.
Yeah.
No, obviously that's a joke. Today's episode is
no, it's
fully
not.
dedicated.
We're totally doing that. No, that's not. I have the showtimes pulled up right now. We're gonna go from A to whatever.
Every city, in the world. No, seriously though, we got to talk about Good Burger too, because that's the movie that everyone's talking about. Yes. And Mean Girls, not Mean Girl 2, but Mean Girls.
Mean Girls the musical. Mean Girls. Yeah, that's right.
I'm so excited.
Oh man, this is going to be a fun, packed
so
episode.
Much high quality content to get into. Which in reality, we are talking about the awardsy great movies that everyone's talking about, and I am actually excited for that. But first, let's get into what Showtime did you see for.
So,
when I saw Killers of the Flower Moon at 4:30 p.m., let me tell you, the sun, it wasn't all the way up, it wasn't all the way down.
I'll tell you this: I didn't have any slobs next to me, which was a relief. But we're going to be talking about. I have a feeling now, for the next couple of weeks. We have a lot of these movies coming out that are all Oscar award season type movies, and now, first of all, let's give it up to the actors and actresses, SAG-AFTRA. The strikes are over as of yesterday. They finally settled on a deal, from what it looks like, that is very, good for them, good for both sides, but mostly good for them. They got everything I think they deserve to get. So now is going to be a huge rush and push for promotions. Your feeds are now going to be inundated and flooded with interviews and guest appearances and red carpets and all that, because they have not been able to do all those things. Two movies that we're going to be talking about today could have helped with promotion from that side of things, I think, personally, especially Killers of the Flower Moon. I know for Priscilla, Sofia Coppola was doing a lot of interviews and all that, so it falls along more on the lines of like indie type of movie things. So of course that's not going to get a lot of traction, but Killers of the Flower Moon, personally, I think could have done more. And if we had Leo out there, Lily Gladstone, I'm sure if she was out talking more about this movie, a lot more people would have went out and seen this movie, despite the over 3-hour runtime. But if Summer proved anything, a 3-hour biopic, was able to be very successful in the theaters. So I honestly think a movie like this could have done the same thing if proper promotion or something was done for it. I think Oppenheimer kind of rode along with the whole Barbenheimer thing, which was, kind of formulated by people, and that gave a lot of that traffic to that movie. But yeah, next couple of weeks, we are going to be talking about a lot of stuff that are being considered probably for the Oscars, for awards, whether it's Oscars or any other kind of awards type stuff. There's a lot of great movies coming out. A lot of movies I saw from the festival are going to be slowly coming out now. So that's going to be very exciting for us to really get into that. and everything. But my first question to you is like, now that the SAG strikes are over, and obviously the promotion train is going to be going rampant and going nuts and all that. In your opinion, like, where do you think the focus is going to be for a lot of these studios?
Sound of Freedom.
Yes. Excellent.
Now that the conspiracy is finally over,
now that
it's not even in theaters,
we can
anymore,
have it out in the clear.
Re-release the true cut. Yeah. What? I'm sorry. What's your actual question? What's the focus
the question
on?
is like, what do you think the main focus is going to be? Like, what major movies and films are we going to start hearing a lot about in the next weeks and going into December?
Sound of Freedom for sure. I honestly,
they're going to re-release it in theaters just for now.
Yeah, what's weird is it's hard to know like the timing of these things because some movies have come and gone in the duration of that strike, and it's not like you're going to get a second shelf life for Dumb Money or something like that.
Right.
And there probably will be 0 awards and 0 future conversation about Dumb Money, except every now and then someone will watch it on Netflix and say, "Oh, it's pretty good." There will be some additional conversation around some of these things that didn't happen before. But I don't have a feeling that like, imagine last year, like Don't Worry, Darling, if in the middle of that press cycle, it just stopped and everyone's like, wait, we got to know what happened and what Chris Pine feel. And like, there might be a round of interviews on The View or something where everyone just come, but I don't feel like there's, and maybe I'm out of the loop, but
you have been traveling for the last 3 weeks. So
been traveling, but also like, I don't really care what the third lead of a movie released in July is thinking now in November. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there will be movies that were already affected and they lost momentum. And there'll be movies in the future that would have been affected that will now have an opportunity to have some momentum because of some news cycle or the stars doing the rounds or something like that. But I'm honestly not sure. And there's some movies too where it might have played out better, where you might not necessarily want all of your stars talking about a certain movie and they're bad interviews, or there could be some controversy that you have maybe missed. So there's some movies where they act like it's a bad thing that the actors didn't get to talk about it.
Yeah.
But there's sometimes where an actor can really hurt a movie's release just because some unnecessary collateral from an interview, or, you know, things get weird at some point, or something is leaked or released from the actor. And I don't know. I think it's kind of everything and nothing at the same time. It could have a huge impact, or one thing I kind of like about it is that when it comes to award season, there'll be some movies that didn't get that extra leg up and they'll just be competing on their own terms. That might help certain movies where there's not as much distraction around them. It would almost be interesting if every movie said, okay, if you're going to compete, you have to have the same playing field. And I don't think it, honestly, at the end of the day, it matters, and in a way it doesn't. In some ways it may have helped or hurt any given movie, and, you know, sliding doors, we'll never necessarily know. We're in the multiverse of maybe that would have changed things, or maybe it wouldn't have, and we have no idea. So I'm honestly not sure. Is there anyone you have in mind where you're like been waiting to hear from this actor about their experience working on an August movie or something? Someone I'm not thinking of?
I think the way you're looking at it too is because you and I, we are already very much aware of these movies, and we know oftentimes months in advance, sometimes a year in advance, that there's a movie coming out that we really want to see. You've been talking about Killers of the Flower Moon since last year, and you've been like dying for this movie now, for a few years,
especially
now,
getting pushed, COVID and all that.
Yeah. But for a more general audience who relies on your late nights with Jimmy Fallon, your Jimmy Kimmels, you know, they rely on those type of coverage to understand what's hot in the streets as far as movies are concerned.
When will we get a roundtable for Expenforables where it's all like, when will that Vanity Fair and it's all the actors, Jason Statham, Sylvester Stallone, 50 Cent, Jamie Foxx is in it? Is it, or there's only one X? Wait. I'm looking at the cast now. This is insane.
I don't think Jamie Foxx was
Move
in
on.
that movie.
Megan Fox. I'm so sorry.
Megan Fox.
There's only one X here.
It's a wrong.
She's in that movie.
She is in that movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Move on. I'm getting lost in a list of names here. This is incredible. Now this is my answer. This is what I need. I want to have the Jimmy Kimmel, and they're all on the set with Jimmy Kimmel and doing a push-up contest or something stupid. Okay.
You know what? That could honestly have led to maybe a couple $1,000 extra at the box office, right? I mean, right. But like a movie like for example, we are recording this on the 10th on a Friday. The big movie that came out is The Marvels, right? And there's a lot of reports going around that box office is not looking hot for that movie. You know, it's looking to it's projecting to come in very low. Now,
it's actually a marvel how poorly it's going to do at the box office.
Thank you. That was nicely done. This is what I've missed. This is what I've missed for the last couple of weeks. But if you had the 3 leading ladies out there doing their promotion thing, you know, if you're on YouTube and you just see them doing wacky games or whatever, if they're touring like the circuits where they're sitting with Jimmy or
you're pong on Jimmy Fallon, sure.
Yeah.
That
like
matters. It honestly does.
That would matter.
And sometimes momentum, and then you get more people in the theater, then you get more word of mouth, and then maybe they would have made money on that movie. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I think right now it definitely might be too late for them. I mean, I'm sure as soon as the announcement went out, they started, you know, the studio was like, all right, this is where we're going to need to start pushing our promotions and all that. And it's all going to be for upcoming movies, right? So your Willy Wonka, you're going to see Chalamet out there. He's hosting SNL this Saturday. So it's kind of perfect timing for that. So you got your Wonkas, you got your Aquaman 2. So Jason Momoa is going to be out there going nuts. Maestro, we could finally see Bradley Cooper out there talking about this film. You know, Napoleon, you know, that's still coming out for Thanksgiving. So, you know, you're going to be hearing a lot of stuff about that, I'm sure. So it's something that we haven't seen now for months. And then now it's just going to seem like we're going to get a ton of it, right? And it might be overbearing for some of us, but this is what is to be expected. So I'm pretty sure that marketing train is going to be nuts and crazy right now. And we're going to be seeing a lot of Barry Keoghan for Saltburn, you know, all that stuff like that. You know, it's the smaller movies that need help for the most part. And like I said, for people like you and I, we are already very much aware of all these movies, but for the general audience, I think they're going to be finally brought into the loop of all these things that are coming out. And if they're interested in what Bradley Cooper has to say about, you know, Leonard Bernstein or something like that.
Oompa Loompa Doompity Junket. Timothy Chalamet have fun at the press junket.
Press junket. Hey-o!
Yeah. That'll be great. I can't wait. Hugh Grant and Timothy Chalamet just being total opposites in an interview at a junket 12 hours a day until one of them snaps.
Oh, yeah.
An arm wrestling contest on Jimmy Fallon. That's what the world needs. And then that movie will be great. That's right. What I want. Yeah.
Yeah, or they do like that mystery box thing that I've seen him do with some celebrities. Like, what's in the box? Oh, it's chocolate. Ha ha ha. All that stupid shit. All right, moving on.
Is it Willy Wonka chocolate or is it a turd? You got to eat it to find out on Jimmy Fallon after the commercials.
Like, oh my gosh, it's a turd. How dare you?
Hugh Grant.
That's my Hugh Grant. Yeah.
This is a bigger turd than my box office flop of 2009.
Yes. Actually, it is a chocolate. But one thing I one movie that we're going to be talking about right now that I think could have helped a little bit with the PR is Priscilla. It's only fitting for us to talk about this movie because we covered Baz Luhrmann's Elvis last year pretty intensely, where we dedicated a whole episode towards it. Now we're getting this new film from Sofia Coppola that tells the other side of things, where this is the point of view of Priscilla herself. And basically the movie spans from their first meet all the way up until where it basically ended, where she left Elvis, right? And that's pretty much the whole gist of the story there.
We shouldn't meet. You mean M-E-A-T, like the way that she was plucked and groomed for their first.
Exactly.
Meat
as fresh
meeting.
meat. Yeah, fresh meat. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
And the way Elvis treats a lot of the women apparently is like pieces of meat. I don't know what that meant, what I was going with over there, but let's just say that this is definitely a movie that paints a different picture of an iconic persona from another point of view that I knew immediately it was going to be very divisive with fans. And I saw the discourse happening already when I was talking about the coverage and talking about the movie from New York Film Festival, and I saw the comments flowing in. And when I dove deeper into who these people were, they have channels dedicated to Elvis and talking about Elvis and things like that. So I knew immediately that these are going to be the people who are going to be negatively against this movie because of the point of view being taken in this movie. The film itself is based off of the memoir from Priscilla Presley. So I know Sophia worked very closely with her on adapting that.
Producer Presley.
Right.
Yeah. Producer Priscilla Presley. Yeah.
Producer but yeah, it's an interesting, and again, no need to worry about spoilers here because this is all pretty much like, bio stuff, and it's some of this stuff has been out there where Priscilla met Elvis at a very young age, which they really focused on. They really focused on, I think, in the beginning and all throughout, on how young she was and how very new she was to a lot of different things. Fish out of water in an environment she's not familiar with, and just trying to learn how to adapt to it all.
She was 14 years old. So let's just be very clear on what we mean by very young. We don't mean like a very young woman. We mean just young.
Just like, young. Yeah, she's a
for
baby.
A human. Yeah, just less, definitely less than. I don't know what the age of consent was in Germany. And you know what? I don't feel like I need to even look that up.
It doesn't even matter.
Even want to. He was 24. She was 14.
Yeah.
That's part of the story. And they were, my understanding, this is a very accurate movie, and at least pulled from the memoir to where everything that happened in the movie and the dialogue, it's all pulled from the memoir. And there wasn't what we get in a lot of the movies, including Elvis's spectacular spectacle last year, where this is you can say true to life or true to memoir or whatever, but at the very least, Sofia Coppola didn't do a lot of adding in her own take and opinion, and there's things that she could have done to make things seem worse or better, and there's little decisions that are made that definitely are going to emphasize part of the plot. That's inevitable. Telling a story will always have some example of bias in how it's told, but at the very least, like the actual facts, the meat and potatoes, the soup to nuts, I don't like any of these phrases in regards to what we've been talking about, but you know what I mean. The actual facts of the film are stripped directly from the memoir from Priscilla Presley. And it's a much lower budget movie, which I think in some ways served it well. Yeah. And in some ways, it's the opposite of the spectacle Elvis movie last year, which is showing him on the road in his wild life. It's mainly she's a 14-year-old girl held captive in a home. In Graceland, it's a big home, but this is a small budget movie, and we don't see doesn't feel expansive. And in reality, it probably didn't feel expansive when you're stuck there. No matter how big a house is, if you're not allowed to leave under threat from the father and your husband, then it's probably going to feel a lot like a prison, even if it's a palatial mansion. Yeah. Very different vibes from last year's movie.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I've been to Graceland and I toured that house. The house is big, but the rooms aren't that huge, so I think they did actually a good representation of how isolating it can be when you're in there. And yeah,
would Jacob Elordi's head have been able to fit his 6'5" frame, been able to comfortably? Okay,
no, so that he's a tall dude. Yeah, and seeing him actually live at the festival when he came up on stage, I was surprised of how tall he was. I was totally not expecting that. And yeah, the ceilings, from what I recalled, were very low. So, and I don't think Elvis was that tall to begin with, right?
He was not. No.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things like, you cast Jacob Elordi, it makes sense for multiple reasons, but also that height difference really emphasized the power dynamic between these two.
Yeah, it did. And
for sure.
and again, with the narrative that they were trying to achieve here is that Elvis in essence was the controlling factor in that relationship. It's like, when I come home, you better be there for me. It's just like one of those things. What I want you to do, you're doing. What I want you to look like, you're going to look like that.
Him trying to keep her innocent even after they're
Right.
together, and just some real creepy pet vibes, which
Yes,
I don't
exactly.
know. I didn't read the memoir, and I'm sure there's other things in the memoir that aren't included here, but I'm really curious on once, because they're still together even once she's of age, and I'm curious because what's weird is, to what degree do you agree to that, and to what degree were you 14 when you got into this relationship with your a favorite pop star that you then later are like, wait, what the fuck is happening? How did I get here? Because that it would be influential on. I don't know if she'd had relations before or what, but at the very least, it's going to like warp your sense of what a normal adult relationship is. If when you become an adult, you're already in a relationship with Elvis Presley, you know, it's going to at least change your expectations and standards for what to expect from a mate.
Right. And I think that's what kind of happened throughout the movie too, is like, as she was getting older, the more she was getting aware about what's right and what's wrong, what she feels comfortable with, you know, basically towards the end of the movie, she started learning how to love herself, and she's starting to get her own interests, and she's doing her own thing. And then once that became more prominent, the more she realized, like, I want my life. I want to have a life that's me, you know, and not so much for somebody else. And that's, you know, that how we basically saw things kind of end that way, and go towards her kind of revolutionizing herself, like getting away from it all. You know, I love how it kind of ended. It was very like Thelma and Louise type ending, where she's in the car, she's driving through the gates of Graceland, and now she's free. Right. And you see like kind of like that sigh of relief on her face, where she kind of like, she made it, you know, and she made it kind of like on her terms. So it's very empowering in that way. But for a movie in itself, it's basically the story of youth, isolation, and kind of realization, and all that stuff like that, and everything that comes in between everything. And one thing that Sofia Coppola does really well is that a lot of her movies tends to focus on these kind of strong-minded or very strong personality female leads or female characters, but oftentimes they are always alone or isolated, or there's something that's keeping them from being accepted somewhere, right? And it's that exploration of them trying to break out, or at least come to terms with it and get a better understanding of it all, right? So I think for that, plus you add the fact that this is a very lower budget type of film, because it kind of represents, once again, the point of view of Priscilla coming into as this poorer personality in a rich environment, you know? So it kind of speaks to a lot of that stuff. I think she did a really great job in this movie with what she had to do and what she had to work with. And I think the entire creative team did a really good job with everything. What were, I liked it a lot, actually. It was one of those movies that when I saw it at the festival, I was like, this is probably some of the best stuff I've seen her do since Lost in Translation, personally. You know, and she's had several movies in between, but none of them hit that like hard for me until I saw this movie. What was your impression when you saw the movie? And I don't know exactly when you saw it, so I was curious what the reception was of those around you.
I'd been out of town, so I'd missed some movies, and this was the very top of my list because I've been a Sofia Coppola stan for a long time.
Same.
I didn't know quite what to expect, although I had the general vibe, and it was basically mood, tone, plot. It was basically what I expected. I just didn't know the backstory, and I hadn't read the memoir, so I didn't know exactly what would be going into it, but I had a general idea. Lost in Translation is an all-time great. I just rewatched Virgin Suicides last night.
Nice.
Marie Antoinette is up there.
Yep.
I liked Somewhere a lot, and I did not like Bling Ring, The Beguiled, or On the Rocks, which I saw at New York Film Festival 2020, and actually saw Sofia Coppola with the microphone, and it was a drive-in style because of pandemic year.
Right.
An all-time favorite movie of mine is A Very Murray Christmas. I watch it every holiday season. It is my one go-to holiday movie. And that's a Sofia Coppola directed 2015 starring Bill Murray. Yes.
I'll say this. I haven't seen that until I saw it for the first time last year.
Okay.
Initially, I didn't like it so much.
You didn't get it. Okay. You would have liked it if you got it. Go ahead. What were you
The
gonna say?
more I watched it, like the more
right.
it played out, the more I started getting into it.
Once you got it. Yeah, it's the best. Yeah.
And I can understand now why there are a lot of people who do like that, you know. And it's kind of like an underrated holiday thing on Netflix. Like not a lot of people talk about it, right?
I've talked to so many people who are Sofia Coppola fans, Bill Murray fans, movie cinephiles, and they're like, wait, what? What's it called?
Right.
What is that? I'm trying to describe it. It's the best. Yeah. So if I were to rank her movies, I think I'm going to go Lost in Translation 1, Verdant Suicides, Marie Antoinette 2, and then a lot of the other ones after that. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to leave Very Merry Christmas out because it's just so special to me. This one is going to be right up there. It might be number 2. It might be number 3 or 4. Somewhere is also up there, but those are going to round out my top 5. Mm-hmm. And I might put this number 2 as of now. I'm not entirely sure. I need to see it again. I want to see how it ages. I also know there's something. We're talking about it being the opposite of last year's Elvis movie. Now, listen, people are going to have complaints about the guy. And he's overall just a great, great dude, except he stole his style and music. Right. And exploited the hell out of other people, especially Black artists. And then other than that, and the weird drug haze, pro-Nixon, gun martial arts phase, and just being just out of his mind.
Yeah.
And other than that, and the child grooming phase, which is kind of his whole career. You can kind of break it off into these different segments. Other than that, you know, what's the problem? Everyone needs to just relax.
Right.
I'm glad I saw in this movie because I remember at first, we talked about it last year in the Elvis episode. Growing up, like Elvis is so much a part of, especially where I'm from. I had an uncle who was an Elvis fan. I grew up like idolizing this dude because he's literally an idol and like, oh, he's cool. But then you just get a little bit more perspective on the history or things are revealed or revealed to you. And you're like, wait. That's what was going on behind the icon the whole time. Jeez. And this movie did a really good job. I honestly don't feel like I feel like she did the more accurate and the more it's a better takedown of Elvis than to say, hey, isn't this super bad, this really bad, horrible guy, and having a documentary just talking about his crimes or something. Mm-hmm. And instead just showing what actually happened. And the audience I saw there weren't that many people. I saw it at a weird showtime. There was a group of people in the back, and apparently one or two of the, I'm going to say like 20 something women. There were not 20 women. It wasn't Elvis's Bible study. It was like 2 women in their 20s, and they were screeching when there's a kiss, when she's pulled out, when they reveal her age, when he's like, hey, baby girl, let's go talk in my room upstairs. It's not weird at all. I promise I'm not weird. This isn't grooming at all. Just come. I just want to talk to you. Lay down, real seductive, like they screech. I mean, like a horror movie, and it felt like I was like, I get it. Yeah, this is creeping me the fuck out. And they also didn't do like a moral story of like, isn't this? They didn't have 3 people in the background being like, isn't he such a bad guy? Don't we all agree this is so? Yeah. Instead, they just showed it in context. And let the audience come to their own conclusions, which I think was actually more effective because I ended up being like, fuck that guy. He's he's definitely creeping, kind of a dick. And they didn't say, oh, he's holding me captive, I don't get to leave. They just showed her not being pressured to stay, which is a lot like being held captive, etc. So when you have a super influential, powerful guy making all these decisions, and he has a lot of yes people around him. Mm-hmm. And in some ways they also show, which last year's Elvis showed him being the victim in a lot of things. This one showed him being in some ways the monster and the victim and kind of just a dummy, reading these books, trying to figure out what's the truth about the meaning of life. I like that they did that. And they show more things and these intimate stories that only his young wife, who's just sitting there like a bird in a cage watching everything, being like, yeah, some other weird stuff happened that y'all might not even know about.
Right. It's definitely one of those things where, you know, we always say be careful of meeting your heroes and all that, because sometimes what you find behind the scenes is not what you expect or not what you really want to see. I think with this case, you know, there's been a lot of rumors and stories going around Elvis and like the things he was into, the things that he would do and all that. I think this movie is a revelation for those who are not very familiar with a lot of that stuff. Um, Mainly the whole grooming aspect of their relationship and how creepy that was. I remember the one part early on in their relationship that really totally got me was when he refused to have sex with her because he wanted her to stay pure and all that as they were getting more serious. Like that just felt extremely odd to me and just not right. And then there was another part where they were play fighting with the pillows, and then he just got all like really like spoiled brat and basically punched her in the face and like, no, I win. Like and I was just like, what is wrong with this guy? It's like everything has to be done his way, you know. And you kind of refer to it like kind of like having a pet. One thing I said in my review was that it was like she was a toy, she was a plaything, and she was there just to be kind of, you know, at his side, at the ready whenever he wanted. And you know, whenever they did stuff, it always had to be under his terms, whatever, you know, they would go doing a very childish like activities because that's what he wanted to do, you know. And of course he had his cronies around him, all tag-alongs, all like, yeah, this is fun, Elvis, woohoo, you know, and all that stuff like that, shooting guns in the backyard,
putting
and,
on a football helmet, running
right.
through, running over a childhood home or an old home of his uncle that was still on the estate.
It's so crazy. It's like what the mentality there is so bizarre. But I wonder too, it's like you said, like maybe this is just a dummy who just came into fame, and you know, now and he's, like you said, he was very easily influenced by a lot of things that people would tell him, things he would read, and they did kind of showcase a little bit of the Tom Parker influence and control, because not showing him, but showing Elvis
Thank
talking to him
God,
on
by
the
the
phone.
way, because I don't need
Right.
to see any more
No,
Tom
no, no, no,
Parker after
no, we didn't.
the Colonel after last year's movie.
Yeah, it was
There's a lot
not
of that.
necessary to see any of that stuff, but we would see him get off the phone with him or having a conversation with him, and you could see like how Elvis's demeanor would change after those conversations.
He literally burned the books that were teaching him how the world worked,
Right.
because the Colonel
Yeah.
told him to do so.
Yeah.
Which, according to the memoir, that means it would have happened if everything in the movie happened in the memoir.
Right. Yeah. And also like the cover-ups of the romantic flings with the actresses and everything, and how he said to Priscilla like, oh, you have to understand, you know, Colonel Parker said I had to do this, and you know, it's better this way, and to keep you at home, blah blah blah, this and that. It's just so it is very very bothersome to see all that stuff happening behind the scenes. But like you said, we would not have known any of that unless it was told from this side, in this point of view. Because when you are in that situation, all you have to do is to observe and to see what's happening. And she saw basically everything happening behind the scenes and all that.
There were definitely hints. I mean, well, this book's been out for a while, and these are things that are kind of known about Elvis, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice to see it in when the things change in the estate and they're letting more movies be released, etc. And then last year's Elvis movie, and then this is a nice counterpoint to it. But also, like, they meet in 1959. In 1959, he releases a song called "Baby Let's Play House," which I'm not going to read the lyrics. It's a little unsettling. Feel free to look it up. In the year before he meets her, "Lover Doll" is a song in the movie King Creole, sung by Elvis. I'm going to just quote a little tiny part. "I'm so glad I found you. Never thought dollies came full grown. I'm going to tie a ribbon around you, wrap you up, and take you home."
There you go.
There's like all the other lyrics are also creepy. Don't worry, that's just like one stanza. If you want another counterpoint on Elvis, a really fun movie, in my opinion, is where Michael Shannon plays Elvis Presley. It's called Elvis and Nixon. Actually, wow, I forgot. This is how long ago 2016 was. Kevin Spacey played Richard Nixon. So
look
if
at
you
that.
just want another counterpoint within that of how things changed since 2016, but nonetheless, it's Michael Shannon playing Weird Elvis near the end when he's meeting Nixon, super into martial arts and clearly on drugs and with a gun collection, and just how there's a famous photo of them and it's like the story behind that photo. Fascinating movie, and Michael Shannon being one of the best playing Weird Elvis was brilliant casting. So there have been, I'm mostly thinking of like Coffee and Cigarettes, where Jim Jarmusch's movie, where it's Spike Lee's, I'm gonna go off memory here, brother and sister, definitely his sister's in it, and they're playing twins, and they were talking about bad Elvis and evil Elvis, and Steve Buscemi's in there, like theorizing about Elvis's evil twin. And there's always been like conspiracy theories around Elvis, and there's been another side of the story out there the whole time. And we even see weird, call him Fat Elvis, call him Weird Elvis, drugged out Elvis, and then dead Elvis near the end.
Yeah.
It's not like he's the guy who was purely like there's a version where it's like JFK, where over his time we're like, oh wait, there were some actual things that were hidden and not known to the public. All of these things were very much on the surface and known to the public for a long time. This dude hasn't been pure, but especially after last year's movie was so popular, having this movie, and then personally, as someone who likes history, Sofia Coppola hasn't done a lot of these history movies. It's Marie Antoinette, which is its own little version of it, and then this movie. It was really nice to see a favorite director of mine. And like you said, all throughout the movie, the performances, there's knocks on the writing, but the fact that it came directly from the true story, I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And the music done by Sophia's partner, Phoenix, at least they supervised it and pulled the music. And without having much Elvis music in there, I felt like that was very well done.
Yeah.
Especially like it didn't need that. We don't need Tom Parker, and we don't need to know what Elvis is doing on the road. We're getting Priscilla's perspective. And I really liked centering the movie around her and showing her life. And even though it starts with the day she meets Elvis and ends with the day she leaves and asks for a separation, I kind of wanted more to her story and what her deal was outside of that. But also that's going to be what the book's about, Elvis and me. And that's going to be that chapter in her life where she's a public figure in that way. Yeah. So I felt like overall it was a very successful film. And I'm glad the story is told, but I'm also glad it was done so artfully by one of my favorite directors. And it feels like the first time since, not 20 years, but like 15-ish years where Sofia Coppola is making a movie that people are saying it's in the zeitgeist, and also it's a really well done movie, since Somewhere would be the most recent one, if we're not including Very Merry Christmas.
Right. Yeah. This is definitely the most I've heard people talking about her when it comes to a film that she's made to come out, because I feel like in the past, yeah, it would be mentioned, but that talk died out really quickly. I think here, this is definitely something that a lot of people are talking about. Well, also it helps to the fact that it's attached to a very iconic person. There's
the Elvis of it, and he's having a little moment. And then it's also Sofia Coppola had a book released, and it's the anniversary of Lost in Translation.
Right.
And she's having a moment also, which is nice to see, for sure.
No,
but the other movies, like, they would be talked about because of her, but they just didn't have legs. People were like, oh, yeah, it was pretty good, but it wasn't the old stuff. And so it wasn't a cultural moment the way that this one is.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's talk about potential awards buzz around this movie. Again, a lot of people are talking about Sofia Coppola and her directing and her creative choices here. The two main actors, Kaylee Spaney and Jacob Elordi. Jacob Elordi is going to have a pretty big year this year with this movie and with Saltburn coming out. I think more people are going to be talking about him for his role in Saltburn versus this. But Kaylee, I think, is someone that people are talking about because she's kind of like a fresh face. I'm not familiar with her at all. I think she's come from more of a TV realm of things, I believe. Like Jacob Elordi came like he's known for his role in Euphoria, I believe, which I have never watched. But I'm not very familiar with her at all. So are we going to see potential maybe focus on her when it comes to any of the acting categories? what else could we potentially? I think adapted screenplay is going to be probably a potential for this. But I don't think there's anything else other than that, to be honest.
Let's say the movie does very well. Like last year, we saw it with some movies like The Menu, The Whale, and certain indies that really made a lot of money, and people were compared to what they projections were, and people were excited about, and it got attention.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that happened here, which it's not looking likely. Then we might be looking at 3 or 4 noms, maybe, and you're looking at adapted, actress, costume. There's a wild world where we're talking cinematography, but no, that's not going to happen. So we're not going to get director like Lost in Translation. I honestly think, I think Marie Antoinette, it was, I just had it pulled up, but I clicked off of it. It's something like score, costume, and there's a third one. That's kind of best case, something like that. I don't even think we get actress because the quantity is the name is an unknown. Where it's not like she's been making on her way up, and because it's such a stacked category. In a lesser year, she gets nominated, and that's not too wild, and she's going to get the 4th or 5th most votes. This year, I don't think she'll even get nominated. Adapted, I don't see it as likely, although it's technically possible. And if the movie does well or gets a certain level of prestige, acclaim, money, something, enough cachet, then it's possible. I don't see that. I think costume is the best option. And I was looking around, the most likely outcome is 0 nominations. Maybe if you're doing 1, I think that's going to be most likely is costume and not a major above the line like actress. Definitely, I think actresses and adapted screenplay are the most likely big awards. And even then, those feel like stretches. And I currently wouldn't put money on that possibility. The landscape changes, and suddenly, we've had big surprises before. It's not impossible, but the landscape would have to change compared to what it is as of today. What the movie's been out a week, and usually by now, it's a known enough quantity. We would have a different narrative at this point if that was likely.
Right. Well, it also it ties into what I said earlier in the episode too, where the studios are doing major promotion pushes now because now they feel more comfortable doing so. So it is quite possible that maybe this sneaks up in there somehow with all of the promotion push that they might decide to do. I think we kind of saw that, voters and minds of certain people can change very easily based off of promotion, favors, all that kind of stuff. We saw that last year in the actress category. Just to change things all of a sudden. But I agree with you. I mean, I would love to see Kaylee recognized, at least for the work she did in this movie. But I can already see in my head several other actresses that are going to be heavily considered above her based off of the things I've seen already so far this year, with a couple more things to come as the year comes to an end. And if anything, Jacob, I think this is just a great year for him to be more recognized, to see him do more stuff in the future. I think after people see him in this movie and in Saltburn, even though there will be probably 0 kind of consideration for him as far as like acting categories are concerned, it's going to get him into the minds of a lot of people so that we will see him potentially do more stuff in the future. Because I think he is a pretty damn good actor, especially once you see him in Saltburn. Again, that's like one of those movies I can't wait to talk to you about once you have a chance to see it. I personally would love to see at least adapted screenplay for this. But like you said, there's just so much out there that anything is possible with all of that. So that being said, my rating I gave this movie on Letterboxd, which Sofia Coppola had no idea existed. This is something that was brought up to her attention very recently. I gave this a rating of 4 stars. And of course I hearted it because I did like it. And I think it is definitely worth a watch, especially
4.
I gave it 4. Yes.
High praise. Okay.
Yeah. No, I think I am somewhat a little biased because I do love Sophia's work. And she's definitely one of those directors that I always, perk up every time I hear that she's doing something. But I did strongly just feel like this was a really well done movie. And just like what you said, how this could be number 2 to you as far as like her filmography goes. This may be very much the same thing for me also. And again, I didn't feel this strong since I felt with Lost in Translation, and Lost in Translation had well-known people in it. Like this one had a cast of people I didn't know anything about. Like a lot of these people I was exposed to for the very first time, and it still got my attention that way, and that says a lot.
Jacob Elordi is it, right? Was I aware of any of these actors before, which is rare. We know at least a few on any given call sheet. Sure. That's interesting. Yeah.
And like I said, Jacob Elordi himself, I had to look it up. I had to see, he was on Euphoria. Oh, okay, that's interesting.
You're talking to a Euphoria fan right here. So
I haven't seen
Elordi.
What did you rate it for? What did you give
4.5. Yeah, and it was close to a 5. There's a couple moments where it's like, okay, it's not peak Coppola, but I really enjoyed it overall, and it's kind of that dreamy, ethereal shit, her getting back to it of a successful movie made me love it even more. So, and realistically, maybe it's a 4, but for similar reasons as you said, I was very heartened that Sofia Coppola made such a high quality film, and it's an interesting historical subject matter. Did a great job at handling all of that so deftly. So 4.5 for me.
Nice. Very, very cool. And of course, we would love to hear your thoughts on the movie if this is something that you saw.
Unless they're dumb. If it's dumb, keep it to yourself. Not all.
I've already got some of those. I've already seen some of them. And of course, the most negative comments are from those who haven't even seen the movie. They
no way.
Like, oh my goodness, how could that even be possible? But welcome to the internet, folks.
Someone doesn't like broccoli and they've never even tried it.
Right. Well, obviously, for those of you who are willing to have decent conversations and good talk about these things, love to hear your thoughts. As a reminder, in every episode, we do have our special email address in the description of the episode so that you can shoot over an email message to us. Let us know your thoughts and feelings about the topics we talk about. And if you have any questions for us, it could potentially be featured in a future episode and we will address it. This episode, we're not addressing anything because we haven't received anything yet. But again, putting it out there so that people will be aware that their comment and or question could be featured in a future episode. Before we move on to our next topic, also just want to quickly remind you all that we are the MovieTime podcast. And obviously, if you're listening to us, you know who we are already. We would appreciate it if you help spread the word. Don't forget, leave that nice rating on your podcast platform of choice. You can also leave a comment there. If you want to see clips of this podcast in video format, check out the YouTube channel LOWKEYGEEK, where you can find all that stuff there. You can also find more reviews, more types of content, watch-alongs, reactions, all those things over there. Check it out. And if you are in the mood to help further support the channel, help the channel grow, again, big goal for the year is to get Blake a new microphone. So fingers crossed on that. Check out some of the affiliate partners we have in the description of this episode. And you may be hearing me talk about one right now. Hey everyone, this episode's brought to you by Mint Mobile. Make sure to check out the link in the description of this episode or scan the QR code you see on the screen right now and find out how you can get unlimited data for only $15 a month. Save a whole ton of money on your monthly cell phone bill without sacrificing any of the quality. No contracts to worry about. You can cancel anytime and the transferring process is so easy. You can keep your phone number or get a new one. Need a new phone? They got you covered as well. Over a year ago, I switched from Verizon without any hesitation, and it's not just because I found Ryan Reynolds to be a sexy mother. Shut your mouth. I'm just talking about Mint Mobile, but I guarantee you if you give Mint Mobile a shot, you'll understand why I made that switch, and you too will be a happy Mint Mobile customer. So once again, check out Mint Mobile, link in the description of this episode or QR code on your screen. Check them out. So happy to have Surfshark on board as one of the affiliate partners for the Low Key Geek channel here. If you're in the market for a new VPN, I highly recommend a company like Surfshark. And trust me, I've tried all of the VPNs out there, and by far Surfshark is the number one clear-cut winner for me because of many reasons. Yes, of course, it gives you great protection and security protection while you're browsing the internet, especially when you travel and you're in other countries or other states, and you want to make sure your browsing data is, fully secured and no one is like spying in on you or stealing some of your stuff that you're transmitting online. What I mainly use Surfshark for is for unlocking the streaming services that I already pay for. There's no better feeling in knowing that you can get more out of your streaming services by accessing content that is not necessarily readily available for you in your region. What do I mean by that? Well, a great example is that recently I wanted to check out some movies off of Hulu, but I don't subscribe to Hulu. But I found out that in the UK, Hulu movies are shown on Disney Plus. So all I had to do was connect to the UK server there through Surfshark. And then once I was connected, I just logged into Disney Plus and bam, Hulu movies were available and I was able to enjoy it without any issues with quality due to speed because everything was playing perfectly and the audio was coming in crisp and all that. It's as if I was just watching it normally through my normal internet connection. But the main reason why Surfshark is by far the best is because it is the cheapest out there. And I can't stress that enough where, we're all trying to save money here. And with all the stuff that we pay for on a monthly basis, the last thing we need is to add on an additional high monthly payment to our bills, and Surfshark will not hurt your wallet at all. As a matter of fact, if you scan that QR code you see on the screen right now, or you check out the link in the description of this video, you'll find out how you can get Surfshark for 85% off plus 2 additional months. Actually, hold the phone right there. Surfshark has decided to start off their Black Friday deals early, now offering even cheaper discounts. Depending on which subscription you go for, you can now get Surfshark One for a total of 28 months for only $2.69 a month. That's as little as $75. Or get Surfshark Starter for a total of 27 months for as little as $1.99 a month. That's just under $54. This is another reason why I am so happy that Surfshark has decided to partner up with us here, and I can't recommend them enough. Again, thank you so much, and if you do try Surfshark out, let me know what you thought about them when you do, and let me know your thoughts about the service in the comments of this video. Now, all that out of the way, thank you again for all your support and for tuning in every week or every time a new episode's up, because sometimes we skip a week by accident. Sorry about that. We're going to get better. We promise. So we were talking about awards consideration, all that kind of stuff like that. I think the next movie we're going to be talking about will be highly talked about once those deep conversations are going to be happening. And that is Killers of the Flower Moon, the latest from, I don't know, this new up-and-coming director called Martin Scorsese. I'm not too familiar with his past work.
Scorsese, something, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Martin? Is he French?
Martin Scorsese. Perfect. I think that's how you pronounce it in Italy. Yeah.
Perfect.
But yeah, Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone. It basically tells the story of the true life events that happened in Oklahoma, Osage Country, to be more specific. The way I kind of describe this to people is think of it as a mafia story tale, but based in the West, right? In kind of like that kind of era of time during the whole oil rush period and everything like that. As I was watching it, it felt, there were so many moments where it felt like I was watching a different version of Goodfellas or a different version of The Godfather or something like that. And we all know Scorsese is very good at telling those type of stories. And it doesn't surprise me that it made me feel that way as I was watching this. Also I'm not surprised with how passionate he was about this subject matter. And it pretty much showed throughout the movie and all throughout, and especially how it ended too, which we could briefly talk about as well. But this is a very deep lore into history. Maybe a lot of people were not so familiar with this thing that happened in history, just like with the Tulsa riots and all those things like that, which was brought into light because of a show that came out on HBO Max with the Watchmen and all that. So I feel like a lot of these storylines are potentially new to a lot of people. As someone like yourself who grew up in Oklahoma, were you already familiar with this piece of history? And was this something that was actually covered in schools when you were over there? Because I'm very curious because, like growing up here in New York, we would talk about certain events that would happen in New York and all those things like that. Maybe not extensively, but at least it's something that is mentioned. But of course, as we grow older, we do more history, we do more research and all that, and then we learn more stuff about it. And like any other school systems, certain things are sometimes kept back and held back because of political reasons or what have you. So for someone who grew up as a white man, as a colonizer in Oklahoma, what has been your history with this piece of history from your neck of the woods?
You're going to be shocked to hear that the Oklahoma public school system, while we had an Oklahoma history class, it was more of like a Oklahoma pride history class where it's like, fuck yeah, we're awesome.
Okay.
And they would talk on some of the history, but there were a lot of things as a teen, adult, and still where I'm like, oh, the thing I was taught was propaganda, and the actual story is tragic and horrible and an atrocity on such massive scale. Why didn't we at least mention it? And then now, sadly, in the last few years, it's gotten worse to where now we're having book burning parties again in the South.
Boy. Jesus.
And we're not allowed to talk about X, Y, and Z, and it's in the legislation. So I am confident to tell you we did not cover much of this topic. If anything around it was covered, it would have been bullet pointed, and that now the current education is somehow worse. So that I know to be certain, and I can say it very confidently, that if there's a bad historical event and the whites were the perpetrators, they're definitely not talking about it. They're talking about it less now. And it's fucking tragic. It is one of the most sickening things. And then people are like, why don't people get over it? It's like, why don't you fucking talk about it for 5 seconds?
Yeah.
And then maybe give people a chance to at least have a conversation.
Yeah.
And then say, why don't you get over it once you've at least admitted that it happened at all, motherfuckers. So no, you're going to be shocked to hear this wasn't handled definitely or at all by the Oklahoma public school system. I was aware of the story only because I have a mother from Oklahoma who loves history books and reading. And so she had mentioned the book and talked about it at some point. I don't know if she wasn't from Oklahoma, if another literary mother in another state. I know that there are people who read it. I don't know if it would have made it to her desk necessarily if she hadn't been from Oklahoma. But it was particularly interesting, and you might see it at the indie bookstore. There'd be a authors from Oklahoma and an Oklahoma history, Oklahoma books section. And this would have been prominently featured there. And it was a successful book that I personally never read and then became intrigued about. It's like we were talking about with Elvis and me.
Yeah.
I'm a movie person and not a book person. And so I was much more intrigued by the book once I realized there'd be a movie out, and then I didn't want to ruin the movie by reading the book. And now it turns out there were some interesting decisions made in the movie in contrast with the book, that the book might actually be more interesting. And maybe I wish I'd read it, but nonetheless, I had known people who'd read the book, and that was only in the last handful of years. That's as close as we got to covering this subject in my history as someone who lived in Oklahoma for 23-ish years.
Right. So as someone who is from that area, now having a chance to watch this movie, like, what were your initial reactions? What did you feel about it? I mean, we talk about Scorsese all the time. I feel like that's, as movie, as cinephiles like us, fans like us, Scorsese always seems to creep up in conversation very frequently, whether we're talking about his past movies or his point of view of things, his long run times as of recent when it comes to his own films. I feel like the long run time for this all of it was well utilized, unlike a movie like The Irishman, where you kind of question certain decisions made there. And I don't think a lot of people will be complaining so much about the runtime for this if they are into the pure art of storytelling, because this is basically what this was. So what were your all reactions there, and what was I think it's good to talk about theater experience too, because again, with a long run time like this, I'm sure there was varying degrees of reaction from the audience you were with. But how was that like for you?
Overall, I was surprised by the history, and I was glad that I knew that this movie would get in depth, and I was aware enough of the plot of the book, but honestly, the details and the people and the characters weren't what I expected them to be. And we had talked about it before, even with the Leonardo DiCaprio was going to play the lead, and the lead of the book is essentially the Jesse Plemons character, is my understanding. And that's why when you and I talked recently, I was saying Jesse Plemons was the lead, is because people who had read the book and learned who Jesse Plemons was playing were thinking he would have the most screen time. I haven't read the book, so I don't know how true that is, but that's an understanding that I've gathered from taking in content about this movie. And if he's not getting, like, at some point it might switch, but at the very least it's starting with and in the movie I was thinking Jesse Plemons finally shows up around the 45 minutes or hour remaining mark. I wish that I'd heard more of that story and history. That was interesting to me. That said, I don't want to take much away from, I wish we'd had less time in De Niro and DiCaprio, more time with the Gladstones, Lily Gladstone's character and Plemons' character. But nonetheless, this is already a long ass movie, and I think you're right. He didn't waste a lot of time.
Yeah.
The theater reaction, I saw it. I was on vacation. I was in San Francisco for a wedding, and I wanted to see it so badly because it's the new Scorsese, and I was about to go to Cuba where I would not be able to see this movie. So I made a point. It was like an afternoon screening. I think it was the day it came out or the next day, Thursday or Friday, 4:30 p.m., something like that. And it was a pretty full theater. A lot of people who were there, not just because they were at the movie theater, but they wanted to see this movie specifically. I had the feeling that people were into it. It had their attention. They were very focused on it. And it wasn't, for the runtime especially, it wasn't a lot of, snoring noise in the background or rowdy teens or whatever. So it was kind of, in a way, especially for an AMC theater, it was kind of a best case scenario where it was a basically full theater of people who were definitely paying attention to the movie.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's good, because my experience, so I saw the movie, again, as of this recording, just 2 nights ago, for the very first time, because I just could not find a proper time for me to go and dedicate essentially 4 hours, because even though the movie is like 3 hours and 20 something minutes, you have time for trailers, you have time to get there and settle in and all that. So you're really talking about 4 hours, once you get to the location that you're dedicating.
Where did you, actually, I just want to hear you go off, like just talk about your theater experience on the microphone and get into all that and what day you saw it, everything.
Just every specific detail.
Just tell me everything. Yeah, just own the mic.
Yeah. So again, this was, like I said, a couple of days ago. It was the last showing of that day. And the reason why I really ran out and went to see it at that time is because it was the last time that this movie was going to show at this theater. Everyone who's been listening to this podcast knows exactly which theater I go to. It's the Kaufman Astoria Theater. I'm happy to say that there were no slobs present at this screening, because they probably went to an earlier one without me there. So good for them. But I think a lot of people were aware that this was also going to be the last time this movie was showing there, because for what was a Tuesday night, there was a little bit over a third capacity, which again, for a Tuesday night for a film that's been out for a while and a 3+ hour long film, it was a pretty decent showing for that. Unfortunately, I did have that one case where a guy did fall asleep and ended up snoring for quite a bit towards the middle of the movie, woke up, realized he's been sleeping, and then just left. So at least he left. So that was good. But I think overall, I was not aware of the story whatsoever. I've heard and read like little things here and there, blurbs here and there, and I was floored by the telling of the story. It was, if I were to make any kind of comparison, you had Spielberg who did a movie, Schindler's List, that talked about the Holocaust and all that. And you can tell how passionate he was in putting that film together and telling the story. But at the same time, also providing proper recognition and proper respect to those who suffered from that time in history. Scorsese did very much the same thing here. But he also didn't hold back when it comes to the atrocities that happened there. Now, from what I've heard from certain people, it wasn't enough for them. They felt like maybe there was more stuff that wasn't covered and all that. But there's only so much you can do without kind of hurting your way of telling a story. You don't have to show every specific bad thing that happened, but show enough that gives and paints a certain picture and all that. But I felt the proper care he put into doing that, using the point of view of DiCaprio's character as this kind of lost individual, not really smart, just following whatever his uncle tells him to do, getting himself involved, but then also dealing with loyalty, like that kind of like conundrum and everything like that. It was a very interesting point of view, and it led to a better story, I think. Unless it was compared to if this was told by the Jesse Plemons character, it probably would. If that would probably be more like black and white, just very like detailed and very specific. Well, here you get to see kind of like the emotional struggle, the moral struggle, and all that stuff like that. That being said, I thought the performances all across the board were fantastic. Lily Gladstone is a powerhouse. Her performance was just so phenomenally strong. And again, I was not familiar with her at all. And, hearing her story about how she was on the verge of quitting acting, and then she got the call from Scorsese to kind of audition for this role and then to get the role. This is like one of those career defining roles, right? Like we love talking about that stuff. And this is definitely one of those. So much so that I think it outshined DiCaprio's performance, and that's saying a lot for DiCaprio, who does very well in Scorsese films, for the fact that it totally outshined his whole entire performance, I thought. And it says a lot about hers. I want to quickly talk about the way the movie ended. And I loved how it was kind of like a radio broadcast, just recapping the details of everything and kind of like outlining, well, this is where so-and-so ended up. This is where so-and-so ended up, instead of doing one of those like typical black and white kind of like stills of like the actual photos of the actual people with like headlines or like a recap in text saying all that stuff. It was done in such a theatrical type of way that I felt it was a little bit more personal that way, especially when you have Scorsese show up in his own film, recapping, the ending of Lily Gladstone's character and where she ended up and how things ended up for her and her family and all that. So I thought that was like a great personal touch to it all. The runtime didn't feel anything to me. I was enthralled throughout the whole thing. And it's the art of storytelling. And this is definitely, if you're new to Scorsese, or I've never heard of anyone say anything bad about Scorsese films personally, but if you're like on the fence about him and his way of directing, this is a movie that will define that for you, if anything. And the reason why I kind of I will compare this to Spielberg's Schindler's List because, again, it covers a very specific part of history that was a huge atrocity to a certain race that is still out there, but obviously in lower numbers. It was a group of people that were wronged by the doings of others. And it was a very nice tribute and story outlining all of those things. And yeah, he did it really well. And you could tell that he was very careful in the subject matter and really wanting to protect all of those involved while still telling a very intriguing story at the end of the day. So I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And I could tell people who were in the theater with me enjoyed it equally as well, where when the movie ended, it was like, it's a sigh of relief, not because the movie's over, but it was like a sigh of relief of like, wow, that was heavy. Like we just saw a lot of stuff. And you could tell people walked away with being fulfilled of like being introduced to this story that was freshly told to them in this manner. So very, very well done overall, I think, personally.
No, 100%. I have the same feeling from my audience. I personally can't speak on did Scorsese handle the history in a way that I feel accurately represents my people, except for, the fucking white people in Oklahoma being just pieces of shit. That was definitely felt pretty accurate. Weird teeth and facial structures. Like, how'd your face get like that, DiCaprio? I was honestly, one of the first things I Googled was like, was he using prosthetics? What was going on there?
Well, definitely it was the teeth, right? They definitely did something with the teeth, obviously, right? With the caps and everything.
How do you that? And then also there was something with this, which he has a little bit of that, but they just did a little bit more like owl arch or something. I don't know, something interesting about that. A lot of forehead going on.
Oh yeah.
Which we could get into something like them saying even more about the character with how he was designed, but I think I'll talk a little bit on the moral telling because similar to we just talked about Priscilla, there's something really interesting, I think, about not having a lot of exposition and saying, isn't he a super, super evil guy and isn't what he did bad? And instead, the main characters in the movie just being part of history. And we get to see more nuance. Toward the end, I actually ask myself, and I know he's part of an atrocity. I'm not trying to say he's not part of just some real horrible crimes, but like how culpable is DiCaprio and how innocent is he? And I think that's a fair question to ask at the end of the movie. And kind of any bad guy, there are some people where it's just like, all right, pure rock hard evil to the core. And you definitely get that feeling about De Niro's character for sure. But with DiCaprio's character and him being he and his wife being the main two characters, but I think he's getting more screen time, especially while she's been poisoned by him.
Yeah.
And there's this weird, like, okay, is he stupid? Is he in denial? Is he 100% aware of what's going on? And I actually asked, did he know what he was doing to his wife while he was poisoning her? And I don't think that we know. And I don't think that Scorsese is even trying to let him off the hook. Yeah. I think he's just trying to show the gray area complexities of when someone's being used, taken advantage of. Maybe they're dumb. Maybe there's something else going on with them. And sometimes they look the other way. Whereas sometimes in the past, he's shown a character who's doing horrible things and I'm going to say glorifying it. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's not saying that Ray Liotta in Goodfellas is a great guy, but he's at least got some really cool rock and roll music and a hot wife and great style. You know what I mean? Like there's something about that. In this one, it's kind of the opposite. Like you don't really want to be DiCaprio at the end of this movie in any way. And you, in some ways, you either feel bad for him or feel like I don't want any part of that life at all. If that was my uncle, I would be pretty fucking miserable. Not like, oh, that looked fun for a while, Wolf of Wall Street, until it didn't. It definitely wasn't that either. And I think there's some maturity to Scorsese's storytelling and him being older in his years and looking back. And there's been conversation about that. And from his end, where he's become even more thoughtful towards these topics, which he's always been a moral philosopher in ways. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the movies where even he's glorifying these people, he's more so asking, like, what is the human condition? What is it that people are capable of? Yeah. Is there redemption? In this movie, I think he's taking that and adding a layer of complexity and intricacy. And that's part of why he told it from the perspective that he did. And so it's a historical tale, but it's not just, where did the FBI come from? Let's do a little digging and tell the factual. Instead, it's a very interesting story into kind of the soul of that marriage of DiCaprio's character, his relationship with De Niro's character, etc. I thought overall very successful, and I think that there's a lot. If we're going to talk about awards,
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of performances and aspects of this movie. This could be one where a year where Oppenheimer gets 10, 12 Oscars, and this could be a year where Killers of the Flower Moon is first runner up to those, or vice versa.
Yeah.
But at the very least, I think there will be some people, kind of like Irishman, the hangover of that movie, where people were like, yeah, it was really good, and these are great actors, and it was well done, but it wasn't much fun. I don't really want to rewatch it. I'm not going to be passionately like, fuck yeah, you guys got to see. It wasn't the everything everywhere all at once high. Right. Where it's like, oh my God, I got to tell everyone, just go watch that. It's going to be more like, that was deep and meaningful and powerful, significant, but damn, it was a tough hang. That in Wolf of Wall Street's another example of that. I think there's something to be said when you leave one of these movies, if you leave it going, wow, what a cool experience I just had. This isn't necessarily going to be that simple. I don't think it will necessarily win a bunch of awards. I think it'll get nominated for a shitload. Definitely more than Irishman, and up there with any Scorsese film, especially when he and De Niro are later in their years, and this might be a legacy nomination for them. Mm-hmm. And Scorsese and DiCaprio both having the albatross around their necks of they never get nominated or they never win, and they're always nominated. And now that's kind of behind both of them, and it's been enough years where that's not even going to be part of the narrative much.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious how things go in the next few months for this movie. But personally, did I think it was successful? The score, R.I.P. Robbie Robertson, that's something that I think would be interesting. It might win score, and it might be a posthumous win there. Or I think at the very least, it's going to get second or third most votes. But fuck, great score. And then just all of the cinematography, editing. It could get costume, makeup, and hair, especially with DiCaprio. I think it could get a lot of either awards or award season shine for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love that we're talking about this now, because that's a great transition to where I wanted this conversation to go. Because
you're welcome.
Good job. It's as if we were born to do this. It's definitely one of those films where you mentioned maturity. And, we can see the maturity level of Scorsese in this film. I just talked about Irishman and how that was a 3-hour plus long movie, but I didn't walk away feeling the way I'm feeling with this movie. This movie hit me in the feels. It hit me in all of these different things. But it also hit me in the performances, the strength of the performances. De Niro, I think this is the best I've seen De Niro in a very long time, to be honest with you. I mean, it's funny when you see De Niro as the person outside in the public, where he looks like he's always out of it. He looks like he's just not there or just not willing to engage. He oftentimes acts aloof, during interviews and all that. But then when you see him on screen, in front of the camera, doing what he's doing, you're like, holy shit, where did this come from? It's amazing how there's that switch that turns on with certain actors and actresses, how they can just totally flip and do what they got to do and all that. But I think this is definitely one of his strongest performances I ever seen him do in a minute. So I won't be surprised if we hear his name pop up when it comes to the acting category. I'm assuming that would be supporting actor, right? In this case,
for De Niro,
yeah,
for sure. And I think Plemons could have a conversation there, but I don't think he had enough screen time. Honestly,
it wasn't enough. It definitely wasn't enough.
He's had bigger performances, more powerful performances, and if it was a amazing knock your socks off, but it was a pretty simple role. He was playing a simple guy asking questions that it wasn't an over the top powerful short performance. So I think it's De Niro's of those two for sure.
Yeah, definitely De Niro. DiCaprio may get a nomination just because, but I honestly don't know if I will say yes or no to that. Like I said, Lily's performance was so much stronger than his. That for sure she's going to get nominated. I guess in her case that would be lead actress. Is that? Or again, there's always that
he's putting in for lead actress, even though it could go in for supporting, and that's interesting to me that she's making a point, I'm going lead, which go
Good.
big, you know.
She should, because she deserves it. And again, I was talking about career defining performance. I mean, for her to to do a performance like this when she was on the verge of giving up on Hollywood altogether, like it's like one of those things where, you know, when you're up against the wall and you're just like, this is my last chance, probably. I'm going all in. And she just like
We had a
whatever she
supporting
had in
actor who
her.
that was a similar story, you know, last year,
Yeah.
with in a very different narrative. But I just mean on the ropes of their career, and then they're
Yeah.
getting a win in Kiwi Kwan's case.
Yeah. It's just like whatever you have in you, you're just like, I'm just going to put all of me out there, you know, and she definitely did that for sure. One question I wanted to ask, because I've been seeing a lot of discourse about this one particular role. Um, the lawyer, God, why is the name escaping me right now? The whale himself, Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
So a lot of discourse going around about how kooky his character came across and how kind of like cartoony. What was your take on his performance?
Somebody was talking about if you read the book and you think this is the big moment of the movie, and I'm not sure even because I haven't read the book, but it's in the order of filming, and if you think you're the ninth inning home run hitter pulled off the bench, and this is going to be the big go, you know, like over the top performance that they're looking for, and it didn't fit the whole rest of the tone of the movie. And I honestly don't think it's Brendan Fraser's fault.
No.
And I don't know if someone never said like, hey, do you want to try it toned down, or what the reason was. But I'm guessing dude's not in the rest of the movie. It's one of the weird things about movies. We watch it back to back, every scene, but Brendan Fraser probably didn't watch a single second of the rest of the movie going into it.
Right.
Although it's not impossible. And maybe there's something about what order they film things in, and then they recut it, and it turns out that tone doesn't make a ton of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's similar to like the Howard Dean scream, where in reality, in the moment, it wasn't that weird, but then you play it back later, and it seems kind of strange. So that's my gut take on it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and I think also Scorsese, he likes characters like that. He likes to have fun sometimes, and I felt like this was a moment where he's just like, okay, I want him to be a little bit more eccentric, a little bit more like not on the same wavelength as all of these other people who we've been bogged down with such seriousness and such all this stuff. I was like, let's have a little fun, right? I feel like Scorsese likes doing that. But it is funny how for the majority of the movie, we were focused on DiCaprio, Lily Gladstone, De Niro. And like halfway through the movie, all of a sudden Jesse Plemons shows up, right? And I don't know if you experienced this in your theater, but people in the theater who I guess didn't know was like, I heard like, oh, it's that guy. Like, oh, I didn't know he was in this movie. And then like towards the end, as we're getting towards the third act, you had John Lithgow show up, you know, as like another attorney. And then I heard the same thing. Like people were just like, oh, wow, he's in this movie too. And then of course, Brendan Fraser shows up and the same reaction and all that. So it's such an interesting effect when you have such powerhouse actors, people who've been in the biz for so long, that impact they could have, even if it's just for like 5 minutes worth of screen time, right? And what kind of impact they could have on an audience. It's just so fascinating to see that. I'm not saying these are going to equate to any recognition, but it's just nice to kind of see that. But like, it was interesting to see kind of the discourse behind the whole Brendan Fraser of it all. And I think it's poorly directed towards him, which it looks like it's been, and it's kind of unfortunate. Here we have a guy who did The Whale not that long ago, being touted as like the best performance of his life, and then now people are like, "What the fuck was this performance?"
Yeah, and from The Whale, we know dude can do subtle, so I don't think that's the issue. It's not that he just lost all ability at nuance or something like that.
Yeah. But it was kind of funny to see his character show up and be like, well, I think if you did this and do that, like he was kind of like really over the top. I just thought it was like kind of funny. Yeah. But yeah, Scorsese's definitely getting a nomination for director on this one, right?
I mean, you mentioned DiCaprio earlier
Yeah.
as not sure. To me, he's a shoe-in.
You think
To
he's a
me, it's
shoo-in?
the
Okay.
shoe-ins are still Cillian, Cillian Murphy, Bradley Cooper for Maestro, and DiCaprio for this movie,
Hmm.
with some other names that'll be rattling around. But to me, I don't disagree that Lily Gladstone had a stronger acting performance. I think DiCaprio was also asked to do more, and he
Hmm.
DiCaprio'd the hell out of it. Gladstone's character was bedridden for a lot of it, which makes it a difficult. She has less minutes, but there's plenty of time she's on the screen and can barely speak because she's sick.
Yeah.
I think that she's more likely to win than DiCaprio. But personally, I think as of today, I would be stunned if DiCaprio is not on the list of nominations.
Okay.
For Scorsese, I have a similar feeling, but maybe even a little less confidence about director, because that's a stacked category. Nonetheless, I have a strong feeling that it might be De Niro, DiCaprio, Gladstone, Scorsese all getting big time nominations and Best Picture,
Right.
Adapted Screenplay. And I'm just saying nominations here, not wins.
Yeah, of course.
And then as we start to see how the landscape shakes out, we might be looking at a lot of wins, or at least a lot of first or second place in these categories. That feels likely to me as of now.
Yeah. Or that one win, right? That like one big win, right?
Gladstone,
And
as of now, that's what my
I
gut
honestly
says.
think that could be the case here, because like I'm trying to think of all the movies I've seen so far and those that are coming out as far as like lead actress is concerned. I have a feeling she may have a leg up on a lot of these other actresses out there that could be considered right now. Because like it's true, she was barely on screen. Not when you compare it to Leonardo DiCaprio, but when she made every moment count. And all you had to do was like look at those emotional moments where she is like in agony, or when she's like crying or grieving over something bad that happened. Like those performances alone were so strong, so powerful. Like you felt
incredible.
It. Yeah, you really
incredible.
felt it.
To go to how many times has DiCaprio gone against someone in a one-on-one and he isn't the clear victor?
Right.
Even just doing so much or being so intense.
Yeah.
She was more intense than him, which is kind of how the movie is set up and intended, but she damn knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at a list of short list of likely nominations, we're talking Priscilla, Emma Stone, Poor Things, Margot Robbie, Barbie, Carey Mulligan in Maestro, Sandra Fuller in Anatomy of a Fall, Annette Bening in Nyad, and Fantasia Barrino in The Color Purple.
Right.
There's some other names that could get mentioned in there, but from my mind, she's definitely a nominee. And I personally would think of her as the winner of that group as of now, although we haven't seen a couple of these movies. And I just can't imagine Margot Robbie winning for Barbie, even if it's got way more, box office. Emma Stone is interesting. I haven't seen Poor Things yet, but I know that there's a lot of people saying that she's a favorite there. But at the very least, I have to think that that Gladstone's role will be taken very seriously for nominations if she's in it. If she ends up actually being in it for Best Actress.
No, for sure. It's funny. It's very interesting. When it comes to Emma Stone, personally, I would say like she will definitely deserve a nomination once that time comes around. But I think it all depends on what side of the Academy we get here. If we get more of the younger, modernized way of thinking type of Academy, then she's definitely going to get nominated. I think if we go the other route, or if it's a little bit too mixed, I could potentially see her getting snubbed, because of, and I don't want to spoil so much for you because you haven't seen the movie yet, but she does a lot of stuff that could be looked upon as risque in a kind of in a certain way. Which in my opinion is a positive, because I think she just like how we said Ana de Armas really did a lot of risque stuff last year, and it was one of those things where we never thought she would go there. Emma Stone did a lot of things that I never thought she would go here, And I applaud her for that, because I think it again just shows you how strong of an actress she was, and also how much she believed in the character, that she was willing to do all that stuff. So it really depends on what kind of side of the Academy we get. I do also want to throw in there Greta Lee for Past Lives. I still think that she could be a strong consideration that not a lot of people are talking about right now. But this was a movie that's been talked about for the majority of the year as still one of the top 3 best movies that came out this year. When you talk to like critics, and when I see like the discourse happening, and then the conversations happening online and all that stuff like that. I know we're past this part of the conversation, but I just want to quickly go back to the whole DiCaprio innocence, what kind of character he was and everything. Because you bring up a very interesting point, and I think it's one of those things where it's like, his kind of character is one of those that kind of rides the line a bit, where it's like, if you compared him to a Ray Liotta in Goodfellas, where Liotta started off as innocent, thrown into this world that he was not familiar with, and then took the ball and ran with it, and went out the other side as like this big, kind of person who went against the grain, right? Here you have DiCaprio's character of Ernest kind of just doing what he thought he should do because that's what he was told to do, right? Because he really didn't have much of a mind of his own. Like here he is coming from the war, kind of downtrodden. You could tell he has a little bit of a mean streak in him. And they showed that like when he first arrived into town and there was like a fight happening and he tried to get his licks in there because he was like, oh yeah, this is, let's do this. So you could tell he has kind of like that mean streak in him when he was running jobs with his brother in the movie, who is, you could tell like if DiCaprio was to take the ball and run it, he would have ended up like his brother, who's also as menacing as the uncle. But he was still caught in between of his feelings for his wife and kind of like that good moral compass to doing what he was told because of the loyalty and dedication he had to his uncle. So he kind of tried to ride that line. As he was fudging around with the insulin and putting in that poison, I do strongly feel like he didn't want to do it, but he knew if he didn't, he would get repercussions and face consequences from his uncle, which he didn't want to do. And I think he knew that it was causing harm because if you recall, he also put it in his drink at one point when he was like at his lowest, and he kind of wanted to see how it would affect him. And he kind of like was really out of it that one night in the room with his wife and all that. But I think he's also he also doesn't have a strong-willed mind where he's like, I gotta stop this. Like he could have done it at any time, and he just chose not to. So it's kind of that weird kind of conundrum where it's just like, you could tell he loves his wife, you could tell he has care for certain people, but at the same time he's doing all of these bad things behind the scenes and following an uncle who, at the end of the day, is really a bad person. Like, if anything, that is a true villain, where he has his public persona, and then he had this like deep-rooted internal persona that's only seen behind the scenes and what he's trying to do there within town. So it's very complex, and like we were saying before, it does show the maturity of Scorsese in putting forth a character like that on screen. And it was just like a really interesting thing. And no matter how you feel about that character, I don't think you're wrong or right in thinking like he's bad or thinking he's good or thinking he was lost or whatever the case is like that, because I think it was all of those things. But it led to like a great performance in the movie overall, again, as we're saying here. So I do strongly feel like it will have a lot of presence during award season. But I agree with you. It could be one of those things where it gets nominated a whole ton, but then we may only see like it come away with like 1 or 2, whatever. Or it could just clean house. Who knows, right?
Yeah. This is one of the movies that I'm most curious about for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like everything you said about the DiCaprio character feels accurate to me, in that I'm going to call it a moral gray area.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest criticisms of Scorsese was from, I'm going to go off memory since this has been out for a minute, but I think it was the translator or someone with Osage background criticizing the film, saying that they kind of made DiCaprio's character more, what's the word, not compelling, but more innocent. Yeah. And the idea that like, as if you could love someone that you're killing. And I think that's something that Scorsese is doing well here. And again, I'm not trying to say that that person's feeling toward the character is invalid. I'm sure that if I had been in their circumstances, I would also be more pissed at the DiCaprio character.
Sure. That
makes sense to me. So I'm not trying to invalidate that by any means, but I do think that part of what Scorsese is doing with this is you have the history, and that's one thing. And then he's adapting it and focusing on certain perspectives to where at the end of the story, he's asking that question in a way of like, is it possible? And the audience is actually left with an open-ended question. Is it possible that he loved his wife? And they're asking that question, like essentially on the stand of this character's life. Is it possible that he loved his wife and knew what he was doing? Is it possible that he was complicit and in denial or looking the other way or doing that weird thing that humans are capable of where they're like, I think this is bad, but I'm going to pretend I don't know it's bad.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna look at the part of the facts that like it's medicine, maybe has side effects, maybe it doesn't. And I'm not even trying to devil's advocate for the dude here. I think that Scorsese, there's something about the moral gray area that we often think of the sins of the world and the bad things that happen as the responsibility of evil men who are looking at things and saying, I'm going to ruin people's lives and exploit them and atrocity them. And in reality, a lot of the culpability in the world is people who don't know better, who look the other way, who choose denial instead of, hey, I'm going to ask Robert De Niro's character a lot of questions until he tells me the real truth here. And I think that that's part of what Scorsese is getting at, is not necessarily trying to let DiCaprio's character off the hook, but I think he's asking a very powerful question of, in what way are we like this character? And in what way are the problems of the world, they rest on the shoulders of a character who doesn't, maybe he's dumb, maybe he doesn't know better, maybe he's looking the other way. And it's not pure evil, De Niro's character, who actually is the one who's with their hand on the gun and the medicine. And that person is influencing them. He's kind of the devil on the shoulder in some ways, or at least the voice whispering in their ear. But the actual people who are, the soldiers in a war are often the ones who are actually pulling the trigger. Right. And they might be just following orders or not knowing better or not asking the questions or not having the information. And I think that that's a very interesting and nuanced look at morality. Whereas a simpler movie would say, he's pure evil. Everything he ever did was pure evil. And everything he touched was pure evil. And instead, I think Scorsese's part of the reason why he told the story he did is because he's asking a really intricate moral question. And that to me is a more interesting and more successful movie, even if I don't know if it's more historically accurate or if it necessarily represents the truth of maybe the true character DiCaprio's playing was much more evil than he's portrayed here. I haven't even read the book. I'm not even trying to say that I could know or would know. But that to me is the most interesting project that Scorsese is dealing with. And it's part of the reason why I'm not surprised DiCaprio shortlisted for these potential nominees. His Gladstone's character, I think, is a more successful, her performance is a more successful performance. I think DiCaprio's character is getting into some interesting gray area that will stick with people more as the time goes on. Yeah. Not more than Gladstone's even, but just more than at first glance at the first viewing of the movie.
No, for sure. And it's definitely one of those things where you walk away from watching this movie and that's the conversation you usually have with people. It's like, is he bad? Is he good? Do you think he was aware and all that? And it just,
what was the deal with those teeth?
Right. What's the deal with the teeth? How come, for someone at that time, how come they're so straight? How come they seem like really perfectly aligned?
Straight. I've never seen teeth too straight before. Did he file them down? What's going on?
Yeah, like what's really happening there?
I never thought that much about teeth during a 3+ hour
Oh my
movie.
God. I mean, especially with the way he talks, it's like you could hear like those teeth are in the way for sure every time. Well, teeth in it all, what was your final rating on Letterboxd for this movie?
I honestly don't recall, but it's a 5. Like I just know myself. That's a 5 for sure.
Nice. Yeah. No, it was a 5 for me too. Yeah, it was a 5
Really?
for. Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah.
I thought you'd be
Yeah.
more of a hater. Just a 4
For
or something.
this, no
Yeah, it's a
way.
great. What a great movie.
It was really really good. But is it one of those movies that you will see again? Like like I think back to
What you mean?
Schindler's
Yeah.
List,
Is it too tough to
and
watch?
yeah, like I watched it once. I'm happy I watched it. It was a very well done movie, but I don't see myself going back to watching it at all. Maybe one more time, but I it's not one of those like first things where I'll be like, you know what, I'm in the mood to watch Schindler's List tonight. Like it's not like one of those things.
Here's what I've heard is that this movie on second viewing is actually more satisfying and that you get a deeper appreciation for it.
Really?
I'm thinking I'm going to give it at least, yeah. And I leaving the theater and there was something unresolved or unsatisfied within me. I think some of these gray areas and these questions and who knows what, and there's a whodunit aspect to it, even though it's not really a whodunit.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of this weird, like, is it a Western? Is it a mafia movie? Is it a mystery, a thriller? What the fuck is it?
Yeah.
And I think that whatever that unresolved whodunit nature of it and who's responsible for what, my guess is there will be some scenes early on where DiCaprio and Gladstone are interacting. I'm going to go, this motherfucker, or she knows exactly who this guy is. And I can remember it, but I think and the way she calls him out and says what she says, he's a wolf or a coyote or something like that.
Yeah, a coyote.
There's some really interesting things where I think on rewatch, I know for a fact Scorsese, it'll be loaded with meaning that now that we know how it's resolved, or how, maybe not even resolved, but how it ends.
Yeah.
Going back and watching it a second time will be a much more enriched experience. So I think I'm going to watch it a second time, and then after that, I'll be able to answer your question. Is this going to be something I put on, or is this going to be something that kind of makes me a little too sick?
Yeah, no, that's fair. And to be honest with you, I don't even have an answer to it myself either. You know, like it's just one of those things where I remember coming home and asking myself, would I want to see that again? You know, it's just one of those things where it was really good and I really love the performances and all that. But would I want to see, especially for a 3 hour plus long movie, you know, Oppenheimer, that was no question. I was going to see that again. Once it's available, like on Blu-ray or digital, I'm going to watch it again. We should do whatever we were planning to do, like, you know, break down, dive in and all that kind of stuff when that's available. But when this movie comes out, let's say digitally, would I want to sit down and watch this again? And I don't know yet. I really don't know. But if it's true what you say, again, the way it ended very like theatrically, you know, and I did appreciate that a lot. So I'm like,
that was a fascinating choice. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought, yeah, fascinating and also just perfect for this type of film, you know, that he's trying to do. So I was like, maybe I would want to watch that again because I just want to experience kind of like that journey and that ride all throughout. I guess we shall see when that time comes around. But a question for all of you listening out there. Did you even see this movie yet? You know, and if you did, is this a movie you'd want to watch again? But what were your overall thoughts of the movie? We would love to hear that. Again, you can find the email address in the description of this episode. Share your thoughts and all that. And if you happen to be watching a clip out on YouTube, comment in the comment section and let us know what you thought about this film. And if you agree or disagree with any of our takes on anything that we talked about in this episode. But that just means that comes to the close of our episode for this week's episode of Movie Time. Before we head on out, Blake, where can people find you online?
Go to Letterboxd. Find me there. Last name Wolf. Last name Wolf. That's it. Last name Wolf. 5 stars for this movie.
There you
go. Not even a question.
We are also heading into the holiday season. So Blake has a very interesting holiday Christmas list of movies that are Christmas movies, even though you may not think they are. You'd be surprised how many Christmas movies are out there.
I'm worried now because the list is getting out of control because there's so many. Like I added Oppenheimer recently because there's the one scene where there's a Christmas tree in the background. And does that make it a Christmas movie? 100%. I don't even know why people say like, oh, is it set around the holidays? Is the holiday season a main impetus for the plot? No. Is there one single shot of a damn Christmas tree? It's a Christmas movie now. People making it so complicated. I need to hear the word Christmas one time in your movie. Right. Even there was a movie recently, I have to remember what it is, But a character says to another character, "Oh, seeing you, it's like Christmas morning," or something like that. Boom, Christmas movie. Oh,
Wow.
Magic Mike. Salma Hayek says it to Magic Mike.
Wow.
I promise if you come with me, it'll be like Christmas morning. Boom, Christmas movie. So this list is deep. It's long. There's going to be some movies on there where you're going to have a holiday party. It'll be holiday season. Oh, grandma comes in, mom comes in, your friend. They're like, hey, put on a Christmas movie. You go, absolutely. And you start up Oppenheimer and you say, just.
Or Magic Mike.
Magic Mike's Last Dance. Bros. How to Blow Up a Pipeline. You're welcome. Elvis last year. The very opening scene is showing a Christmas card from Tom Parker. So, yeah, I could go on the list now. The problem is it's getting a little crazy. So there's 108 movies.
Holy
I just
shit.
added the Holdovers and Priscilla because Priscilla also has a holiday moment in the movie. It's a lot. So if you just want a very... Now, how many of these movies are actually Christmas movies? 0. I mean, 0 of them. The only exception is like a Very Murray Christmas or like an ironic Christmas choice that's not thought of as canon Christmas movie. But you're not going to find Miracle on 34th Street here. We're getting into December. Trust me, this is a list for you. Last Name Wolf is my screen name. Find it on my lists.
Unbelievable.
I think favorites here.
I think a great project to do would be like to go through your list and get those moments that you mentioned Christmas and compile them into this video essay. And like, these are all the Christmas movies.
Fun.
Right?
Yeah, Phantom Thread. Absolutely.
Oh my God.
There's a whole Euphoria episode. The Green Knight. Like, there's a lot of weird indie cinephile movies that people are like, oh, fuck, I can't play that at Christmas. Well, guess what? Yes, you can.
Hey, it also depends on what kind of Christmas you want to have, because, you know, any of these are worthy of a play, depending if you're in the right mood or not. So,
anytime,
whatever.
yeah, Zodiac, put that on for Grandma when she asks for a nice old school Christmas movie.
Oh,
absolutely. Prometheus, absolutely.
Spread the eggnog, plop down, watch movies like that.
Castaway, put yourself in the holiday vibes. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. You know, here you go, Grandma. I got you a volleyball for Christmas. Why?
We're talking about
because of this movie.
We're talking about Scorsese. Goodfellas is on the list.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's a Christmas movie.
Hell
of course it is. That's actually one of the more. It's a little too obvious. Maybe I should take it off.
That's a very actually that's a bit too prominent. I think. Yeah, I think if the Christmas mention lasts a certain amount of time, you should not include it. It should only be like a blip.
Goodfellas. Put yourself in the holiday season. Go watch My Christmas. The Godfather. There's a moment where Al Pacino's character buys a gift at a store in New York City, and there's a little bit of snow and a little bit of mention of Christmas.
Yeah.
Godfather, Christmas movie. You're welcome.
Boom. There you go. See, you're dealing with these kind of minds when you're watching this show and when you're listening to these episodes. So I love it.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? That's one of the. It's too Christmas. It's not on the fucking list.
That's too much of a Christmas movie.
Eyes Wide Shut. Yes, that's absolute. It's almost too much of a Christmas movie.
That's like borderline. That's like right in there.
A lot of references to Christmas.
That's the perfect movie to plop Grandma in front of. Here you go. Why don't you watch Eyes Wide Shut? Enjoy that.
Catch Me If You Can. A lot of Christmas. There's moments where they're like, why are you calling me? It's Christmas. Don't you have family? It's like, whoa, be a little bit more subtle about the Christmas movie. This is weird.
Right.
Hallmark Channel ass movie. Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah. No, screw that. We're giving you like the underground hits right there, like the not so mentioned underrated Christmas movies.
Yeah, Step Brothers, Baby Mama, La La Land. You're welcome. I could do this all day.
Oh man.
Knock yourself out on the eggnog in the Christmas list.
Save it for the video compilation we're going to do, because I think that's going to be amazing if we ever do that. But as for myself, obviously you could find the Low-Key Geek also on Letterboxd, on Twix, Instagram, YouTube, as I mentioned before, if you want to check out video clip outs of these episodes and other forms of content like more reviews, watch alongs, reactions, all that good stuff. You could find my coverage of the New York Film Festival there as well. So definitely check out, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff there. But yeah, if you haven't done so yet, don't forget, rate, leave a nice message for us on your podcast platform of choice, wherever you're listening us through. But that's been Movie Time. I've been Renee. That's been Blake. We are out of here. Until next time, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe. Catch you all in the next one. All right. Peace out, y'all. Bye-bye.